All right, so welcome to remotely controlling robots over the internet. What could go wrong? Everything this morning. I don't know if you saw my tweets. I'm Jason Huggins. I'm currently at Tapster Robotics, and I guess we're hashtag Selenium Conf, is that right? Got it. And then to be all spooky, that is an AI-generated picture of robots, whatever. Ooh, right, so I guess I credit myself because I'm a prompt engineer now, right? Whatever. Got it. I am Hugs on Twitter. I should move over to the other socials, like Mastodon or something like that, but I've just been lazy working on the robots. But anyway, that's me. I live in Chicago. That's me right outside the Tapster office in January. One of those days where it's so cold that you even have to wear swim goggles to work because it's so cold outside. Anyway, but as it's getting a little bit warmer, that's not my usual work attire. Brief greatest hits for me. Started the Selenium project in 2004. Started Sauce Labs, founder, CTO in 2008. Worked with Dan Cuellar at the beginning to start the Appium project. It was kind of almost Appium's prehistory. I was working on it for several months and then very quickly handed it off to Jonathan Lips, so he's in charge of the project now. But that was a long time there. 2015, I left Sauce and started Tapster. So the 8-year anniversary is coming up on Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you. 2015 is when I formally incorporated Tapster. And anyway, that's it. But where my journey kind of began, I was a kid, always loved robots, right? But in my role at Sauce, there's a certain level of my founder, the CEO, was in charge of figuring out how we get paid in the next 6 months. My job as CTO is trying to figure out how we get paid in 5 years or 10 years or whatever, right? And this was like my New Year's resolution at the end of 2009, going to 2010. I wanted to always build a robot, and I started having a hunch that it didn't make any sense to have literally a robot at your desktop or laptop. But the phones are just weird enough. There's so many sensors and things like that one, I wanted an excuse to build a robot, but two, I thought there might be an application for it with phones. And this was the end of 2009. And for a historical note, for some people in the room, the iPhone came out in 2007, and the first Android came out in 2008. And so there's a really interesting thing about the 2008 thing. Around that time, first part of 2008, I was at Google, and I was working on the Selenium farm. So for all of the web testing for desktop, laptop, whatever, desktop testing, it was all automated, right? But a very interesting thing was happening when they were rolling out the Android stuff. It was all manual testing, all of it. It was all outsourced to contractors. There was no automation ever. And this is a recurring theme anytime there's a new platform. The only option on day 0 is manual testing. Automation always comes later. If you think about it, the first popular web browsers were 1994. Selenium didn't come around until 10 years later, right? There were other tools before it, obviously, but there's a certain level of testing tools, and specifically testing automation, is always a lagging indicator of the success of a platform. So we had kind of knowing going into mobile is definitely now a thing, but there was no Selenium for iPhone in 2007, 2008, right? Anyway, so we had some time, but Appium eventually, our first version, I think, was like 2011, 2012. And the specific thing we're kind of waiting for, one besides the manual testing is just the order of the day, but the other thing you're waiting for is corporate America to unlock their interest in building a boring corporate app. And that's where you get the QA budget and the development budget and all those things like that. But 2007, 2008, it was mostly like games and silly stuff, right? The companies weren't really betting on it. But by 2011, 2012, when the iPad came out especially, that's when corporate America really was investing in mobile apps for real, and then that's where people like us come in the room and do things professionally with proper development processes and stuff like that. Anyway, but there's a certain level of kind of a meditation of sorts of wondering why is it on day 0 of a new platform that manual testing is the only thing and automation comes later? And could we get automation to get a little bit closer to that day 0? And so I kind of distilled down the essence of a manual tester, and it is a finger and an eyeball. If you can get a finger and an eyeball if you can automate that, then potentially you can get a little bit closer to manual testing. Or it's like It's like automated manual testing or something, right? Anyway, this was my first robot. It's amazing how far I've come. Now I know why most industrial robots are not made out of wood, but this was made out of wood. Also, there's some Lego parts in there. Also, like the weird hole pattern. It's Lego compatible. So I went to the art store. This was the summer that I was commuting every week back and forth to Sauce in San Francisco, and went to the art store, got the wood, went to the tech shop, the maker space, and got all this stuff. Anyway, got this robot working. I'm going to try to go a little bit faster through this and get to the new stuff. Anyway, but you'll start to see potentially a theme in my robots. This was also the summer that Angry Birds was big. So of course, what are you going to have a robot? I didn't even actually have a name for it. This is pre-Tapster, whatever. I didn't have a name. So literally, the name of the robot is the robot that plays Angry Birds. Showed this off at the Jenkins conference in 2011. Has literally nothing to do with CI or Jenkins. It was a funny story on that one. CloudBees and Sauce Labs were like friendly, and so I was socially obligated as the CTO at Sauce to like submit a talk. And so I have no offense to the CloudBees people, but I didn't really want to do it, so I proposed the most ridiculous idea I could possibly think of. And as I was like stewing on this whole robot idea, I figured I'm gonna make a robot that plays Angry Birds. That was like literally my talk title. And they're like, awesome, yes! So like, crap, I have to go build it. So I did, right? And this is the video that I took. Also, I know my video making skills is not that great. But anyway, this was started. And then something interesting happened. Someone saw this video, posted it on Twitter, and they're like, yeah, your robot, good job, Jason, but it kind of sucks. It's really slow. So he said, you should check out Delta robots. So I did, repurposed all of my parts. You can imagine, again, I'm really proud of myself, but looking back, it's ridiculous. Wooden beams, and then the circuit board, that's an Arduino. No offense to Arduino. Arduino's great. But then my circuitry, my custom circuitry is a breadboard and some random wires, right? So anyway, but this is version 2, right? This is now the 2012 state-of-the-art in Angry Birds robot technology. And yeah, it's working. But there's still, you also can see some problems here, if I can zoom out here. I'm at least down here, right? There's no mount point for the phone, so if the phone moved around, like a lot of these demos is a bit of a, it's a bit of a magic trick, right? Like it worked perfectly, but if you move the phone like a half an inch, the demo wouldn't work because it's an open loop. I just had to like keep moving the phone until the demo worked. Also, the video feed, that's a live video feed off the USB cable. And so that's interesting. There's a certain level of like, that's a bit of a cheat, right? To pull the video feed off the device. But on day 0 of a platform, you might not have that live video feed. So all of these years as I'm trying to go through here, I'm really crafting the robot finger part of it, but I'm kind of cheating on the vision side of it. Still, this is the state of the art in 2015, right when I was actually formally founding Tapster. This was a customer request. They wanted to see 2 robots. Their big thing was they really were interested in the server traffic. And so they wanted 2 robots. The demo that they wanted was 1 computer controlling 2 robots to generate organic text messages back and forth. But they really were interested in just seeing what the server was doing, but they had to generate that traffic. And so they thought of this idea of like, well, let's have a robot do it, right? So I figured, even though they asked me for a demo for text messaging, or sorry, for typing on a keyboard, I figured like, well, that's boring, but how about a piano keyboard, right? So I programmed, I don't know how many robots in the world there are duets of playing Heart and Soul. And of course, as is my style, this was recorded at my desk at 3 a.m. before I had to jump on a plane to DC and give the demo again. Anyway, yeah, most people like get really tired of this song. I definitely got really tired of this song. Debugging Heart and Soul, right? So that was, I don't know why I did that to myself. Anyway, that was 2015. 2019, things are getting a little bit more polished. This is one of the versions. We actually finally have, no, wait, we still have the Arduino, but now it's not breadboard, so that's an improvement. But this is a custom circuit board. It's an Arduino Micro there. Anyway, it's a little bit classier. Stepped up to stepper motors. Still getting 3 stars in Angry Birds. Fun fact, I have actually not made a robot play the 2nd level of Angry Birds. It's only been the 1st level. So we might do the 2nd level today if everything is going. That will be the first. Anyway, so that's 2019. But I actually went back to Deltas. I really like this style of Delta robot. Just like there are kinds of vehicles where there's like cars and trucks and motorcycles. And if you look in the robot world, there are like the things that you would classically think of as a robot arm, that would be a 6-axis robot arm, industrial robot. Usually there's the size of an elephant and it's welding car doors to cars on an assembly line. I think actually the fun fact is like 80% of all robots are part of the automobile industry. So it's good to be in the Midwest if you want to be in robotics, right? But if you're making small robots, then I guess you could be anywhere, right? There's nothing car related to this thing. But the thing about Delta robots that I like is that because all of the mass is up here, there's very little mass at the end effectors, the fancy word for finger. And so it can move very, very quickly. You don't have to have all of this inertia to move a huge hunk of metal. So especially if you're making a robot play a video game, that was actually good advice from that person who heckled me on Twitter. If deltas are really good for that. And of course, I think I got 3 stars. I probably keep recording until I get the 3 stars. Right, so I don't think I would have posted this. It was just 2. It was also nice that they added a thing where you could just skip ahead and get your score. Right, so there you go. That's 2021. And this is also the T3 Plus, right? So there's the tablet version and the smaller versions just for the phones. Again, it goes back to the finger and the eyeball. Oh, if you notice that there is now a camera here. So even though this was programmed as a cheat, like this was literally me kind of playing like Battleship, right? Like just programming in the commands until they worked. I wasn't really integrating the camera yet. It was there, but for anyone who wanted to use it, it's just a USB cable coming out, and you had to do your own computer vision stuff. Really hadn't done anything. But I finally have gotten to, after all these years, a platform that I really like. You notice there's not a lot of wood. There's no wood. We actually have a proper custom circuit board that was properly designed for us. Everything is considered. So now I feel I'm not as embarrassed, And now I also know why. Most robots are made out of metal and not wood. Anyway. So the way I kind of think of this is that, like I said, like manual testing is day 0 for a new platform, and then you have software automation like a Selenium 10 years after the browser, or Appium a couple of years after iPhone and Android. A robot finger and eyeball is like closer to manual, but you can still program it from Python or Java or JavaScript, right? So it kind of is in the middle. But it's an unstable, it's not in equilibrium at all. It's very unstable. You can also map this to other ideas. You could have on one side live musicians, a nice string quartet, which we totally should have at a Selenium conference, or a wedding or whatever. And at the other end, you have, you click play on your Apple Music or Spotify, right? So you have pure automation at one end or pure manual. And so this weird thing of having a robot in the middle, it's potentially as good or bad as like the band at Chuck E. Cheese, right? So it's an unstable point. But since I've seen this over and over again where you have multiple years of the only game in town is manual testing and all of that stuff that goes with it, like, anyway, there's something about this. And then I've been able to pay my rent all these couple years is because obviously we're not all using robots, but enough people, there's a particular group of people who actually need this. And the thing is, if you are doing security testing and the device that is under test has some malware on it, you're going to want to put it in a box, specifically a Faraday cage, to prevent it from calling out if it's really bad stuff that you're investigating, or potentially you have a fix and you then want to test your fix. But you know the device is like bad news, right? So you're putting it in a Faraday cage. Now granted, there's some Faraday cages that have like 2 inputs that you can put your hands in and actually interface with it. So there's some people that buy these Faraday cages and they're like, man, this is annoying because it feels like I'm trying to defuse a bomb or something like that. And so they have this weird idea to put the robot in the Faraday cage and then control it remotely. And so that's where I've found my niche within a niche within a niche of where robots are actually useful. Right, so it's one of those weird things where like when another foreign military comes and asks us, hey, let's talk. It's like I have to go and check, make sure we're still friends with them and all stuff like that. Anyway, it's weird. All right, so let's do a demo and let's see if we can get to level 2 on Angry Birds, right? Okay. So I need to bring back all of the things. Where did everything go? Okay, oh, it's on a different page. Okay, so I've got a bunch of moving parts here. Literally moving? All right, so this is an improvement already right here. I have like follow the mouse. And so I don't have to like play Battleship and just kind of guess positions and then change it. I can literally just kind of go over here and click and then drag. Did that work? I think it did. I'm like, oh, we're missing the sound. That's the best part. Anyway. And I don't know if it's 3 stars. We'll find out, right? Did I get 3 stars? I still got it. All right, cool. Okay, so now we're going into a new adventure. For the first time ever, live, you are here to witness it, we are going to go to the next level. And I have no idea what's going to happen. All right, so this one is you can't do it in level 1. Oh, I forgot. I should probably hide this window so you can kind of see what's going on. And this is actually a feature request because this is actually something that kind of there's this weird thing that the more I kind of get into this, the more I realize that like I can start hanging out with like video game developers and like understand their pain. If you're playing a video game like a car racing game, you have the first person perspective, but sometimes you want to jump out and see a little bit more, like you want to see your character in the scene. And so that's why it's useful to have a view like this view of the robot and the thing, and this view under here, right? Occasionally, also, you know, especially when like the, oh, hold on a second. See if I can reset my view here. Nothing like live demo, right? All right. Okay, all right, right. We're going to do level 2. Let's see what happens. Do you think I'll get 3 stars? I don't know. Oh, that was not good. That was not good. All right, so, okay. I think I actually can finish the level. This is definitely going to be a 1-star effort. Okay, let's see. Come on. All right, that's what I want to hear. And, all right, I got that guy. Yes, okay. I've got one more to go. I know, this is super exciting. Did you think you were just going to be... Of course, you should have known that we were just going to be playing Angry Birds the whole day. And did I get it? I think I got it. I got it, okay. Definitely not 3 stars. Thank you, thank you. Right. So I think you can skip, oh, let's find out our score. 1 star, okay. All right, oh, so I still have something to improve. So one of the things, this is like a launching pad for lots of rants or insights or whatever, or lessons learned. But one thing I've noticed is that it's really annoying to have this 3D printed random object around here blocking the view, right? But I got exactly what I wished for because I wanted to replicate exactly how a user would interact with the device. And one thing I observed is that when I play Angry Birds on my phone, my hand is blocking the screen. So I don't even notice when my hand is blocking the screen because it's not see-through, and yet it really annoys me when it's exactly like, granted, whatever. It's, I mean, oddly shaped and different, right? So then becomes this debate of like, does it have to be 100% lifelike, or what trade-offs do you make in automation's sake to make it work? And this is like a whole jumping off point here, because if you go all the way back to the beginning of the Selenium project, the way I would frame it is that it was intended to be open a browser and interact with a web page exactly the way a person would. So I would argue that this is like truer to the vision originally of Selenium than anything we've done for the last 19 years, but we didn't have a choice, right? But the thing is, like, the observation is that you know, a user does not go view source and look at the web page and find the unique elements or come up with an XPath to figure out how to click an element. They look at the thing and they click it, right? And so I guess if I had known how to make robots back then, and there was computer vision stuff, it's basically like it was not really possible back in 2004 to do this. And it just turns out that like the view source, the document object model, you know, it's useful. Also, there are plenty of people who disagree with the idea that it has to replicate exactly the way a user would. I think actually I might have actually convinced Simon too well that that was the way it should be, because he refused for years to implement status codes and, you know, all the greatest hits of eye rollers of features that Simon rejected. What were the other ones? I think ironically, I had a lobby for the execute JavaScript command. Again, users don't do this. Useful for the automation and all the stuff that we do, but if you just wanted a tool to do exactly, basically like automated manual testing, you don't need any of that. You just need a finger and an eyeball, right? So it's kind of an interesting thing. So I finally have the thing that I wanted in 2004, right? But again, also, there's another thing about it. I'm still the robotic finger. I don't have, I have an eyeball now, but I haven't added the computer vision stuff and the AI stuff and the AI to write the tests and all those things like that. So now I've got a pretty good clear image. Now we can start doing some stuff using, I think there's even some AI vendors here where they can find the red bird, convert that into a screen coordinate and tell the robot to do it. And then it'll be really a closed loop automation stuff. Other jumping off points here. So I've got this live camera view so you can kind of jump out and see the scene. There's something in corporate land, some people might be familiar with the phrase digital twin, and I've got that for the robot. And it would be nice if I got it all integrated, like specifically, it was like extra credit for me, I didn't get it today, but be able to get the live video feed like embedded into the scene. I'm using 3.js as the framework, and this is a live, I mean, it's not connected to the robot, but you can control the robots using these little joystick things, right? It'd be super, super cool if you could kind of zoom out and see this, but then also zoom in, and then like I could hide the robot. I guess, wait, should I to actually make it oh shoot, I got my perspectives off. Doesn't matter. Basically have the live feed and you can play the game like from that view or zoomed out from that, or potentially have it side by side. So there's some kind of fun stuff. There's another lesson learned here from like what does this have to do with Selenium? One, it's in a browser, so hey. So yeah, ask me where my Selenium tests are for this. I did actually give a separate talk at a Chicago Selenium meetup, I think. The way I came up, sorry, jumping around. It is a canvas tag. If I did view source on this, it's just a mess of pixels. Both this 3.js scene and my live video feed, right? So document object model is basically like the head section and then canvas tag. There's nothing else. No document object model to help you. So find element is not going to work unless you do extra stuff. But one thing that I did do for an automated test for this is on a previous version of this, I hid in the scene a QR code right underneath, right by the motors. And so the Selenium test was open the browser, go to this page, move the camera around until you got like right here, and then expect and hope that there is a QR code rendered there, try to read a QR code, get the text out, do an assertion on that text, and if that worked, then the test passed. So again, it's ironically maybe in the spirit of Selenium, like the folks at Apple Tools probably say this, right? Like Selenium can't see if anything is broken. So if I just do a whole bunch of Python code to do assertions, like try to find a QR code, try to render it, it couldn't see the scene, but it could ask for things, potentially like a blind person. It's like hoping when it reaches for something, it's there, right? But it wasn't doing an actual visual assertion. I wasn't doing proper like image recognitions, like making sure that there's like predominantly red and gray in the scene or something like that. So that's like a opportunity for that. So anyway, kind of like, for me, like lessons learned, it's like I finally got a good like platform for this, and now I've got a good camera in place, and now I can start focusing less on the robot finger part of it and more on the vision part. The other thing though, going back to the original point of the title, this is all local hosts. Again, a bit of a cheat, right? So I am going to close the local host server and now do whatever I just showed you over the internet, right? So I've got, so don't download anything over the conference Wi-Fi right now. Remote, I think is the fancy phrase, or is the fancy command line. So what's happening now is this is the window that is controlling the robot and grabbing the frames from the camera. Anyway, and then I've got viewport.tapster.io. And this is, it's all open source, right? So I should like put more of it out there, the bill of materials and all that stuff like that. The hardware is open source. Also, Viewport will be MIT licensed. We're going to get that out there. So you can also have have your own personal instance of a robot, controlling software. Anyway, so if I sign in, Welcome to Viewport. Use Viewport to view and control robots remotely over the internet. There is only one online right now, I'm pretty sure, I hope, and that is this robot. Well, that would be a bummer if it didn't actually work. Wait. It did work. OK, wait. Is it possibly? OK, so the frame rate is a little bit slower. Someone is downloading something over the All right, wait, do I want to, I think I want to go back to play level 1, because I'm just getting nervous. I'm going to retreat back to my, where my skill set is. Yeah, so you'll notice, oh wait, let me bring back that live view. So I'm going to go ahead and select. So if you notice, like, the moving the arm is a little bit faster, but the video frames were lagging. I'm going to just declare victory, because I was able to click a button, right? I think, it's weird, yeah. Again, this is lessons learned and what could go wrong. I wonder if it will actually show up. It will eventually. OK, so I'm going to switch over to, because it's actually lessons learned. I'm going to switch over to my slides again. There's a bunch of stuff. One, if you want to get into this stuff, like I started very unprofessionally making wooden robots using hobby servos, breadboard and wires. Like I didn't know what I was doing. I kind of knew what I was doing. There's actually a great 5-minute talk by, I think it's Ara Glass, whatever, from NPR. It's a great thing about like when you're early in your career and you're trying to do something and you have to keep making stuff, and you have to, even if it's crap, just keep going, right? So it's like there's your vision of what you want to build. It'll take you a long time to get there. If you're not happy with the first version, that's OK. But the only way to get to the final version is to keep making random stuff out of wood and random wires. Anyway, so finally I got to the point where I know how to machine aluminum and build things out of aluminum, getting custom circuit boards made, things like that. The other thing on the software side, there's still improvements. So if you notice, like trying to do this over the actual internet, kind of laggy. There's a lot of inefficiencies when I'm doing. You'll cringe when you hear that I am taking a JPEG and then base64 encoding it for no good reason, and then sending it over a WebSocket to Heroku. And I could be changing out all of these things. Or I could also be making the image smaller. I could be making it grayscale. I could be switching out, instead of using JPEGs or MJPEG, motion JPEG, I could be using a different video encoding. And again, even there's some trade-offs. Over the wire, the JPEGs they're easy to work with, but they're extremely inefficient. So if I just let this stream the whole month, I'd be blowing out my bandwidth bill, right? So that's why you'd be using something else. But they're also harder to work with. The other trade-off with the better video encoding is that there's latency. Granted, I already had some latency here, almost egregiously. Like once you get to a couple of seconds, it starts feeling like you're driving the Mars rover or something. Like there's just way too much lag. But when it was localhost, it was OK. So I still have to work on that. But even then, that's in the context of like manual testing, like doing it live over the internet. Eventually, from an automated point of view, it would be OK if it was like 1 frame per second. What you would do is you would tell a command to click something or move or do whatever, and then have the arm move out of the way. That's when you take a screenshot. That's when you potentially do the computer vision stuff on that, and then you go and click whatever you want again. All kinds of stuff. And also, as far as other lessons learned, like if I could, WebRTC is incredibly complicated. But if you can understand it, and you can spin up the kind of peer-to-peer connection, then you can avoid the hop up to the cloud and back down. So a lot of things here. What else was I going to say? There was one other thing that I wanted to show in the demo. Oh, yes, now I remember. Part of my dreams for kind of making the robot stuff, I don't want to just be the only guy playing with this stuff, being like the circus entertainer at the tech conferences. So I'm always, even though I finally got kind of a platform that I like and I got the video thing that I like, it's still like a lot. It's a lot to print, it's a lot to assemble, it's a lot. And so something happens in the last couple of months where I finally have a bead or an insight into what the next version of the robot would be. So this is the Tapster 3. There's potentially the next one was going to be a Tapster 4. But I'm now pretty convinced that the next robot's going to be Tapster 0. And it's because, one, it's going to be powered by a Raspberry Pi Zero, but also because it has 0 arms. And so that's what this is. Anyway, so getting ready for the conference. Maybe I can get this going for a lightning talk tonight, or maybe at the bar or whatever. But this can do everything that this can do, but now it's so much easier to assemble and so much less crazier for you to consider potentially having on your desk or whatever. Again, it's all going to be open source. Actually, the most complicated part of it is really the Raspberry Pi, which I don't even make, right? And they're coming back in stock. So also I deliberately tested on the crappiest version of the Raspberry Pi that are in stock. The Raspberry Pi 4s or stuff are not available. But if you go to rpilocator.com, you can find the Pi Zeros. They're starting to come back. And even though it doesn't have a lot of RAM, it's not very powerful. The really crazy, amazing thing about this is that this can replace all of this. So there was a talk that I gave at Appium conference in the before times in 2019 in Bangalore, where I showed off a Arduino micro or nano. I think it was a nano. A nano can act as a USB gadget. It can act as a mouse or keyboard when you plug it into a mobile device. There's a brand new feature in iOS 13 that come out like 2 weeks before the Appium conference, but now we're a couple years into iOS 13. It's also available on Android. So I've got a different demo where this a USB cable comes out of this, plugs into the mobile device. That is now the mouse and keyboard, so that replaces this. It can also act as the Ethernet connection. You can make this effectively the Ethernet router. You can also get the audio out, because like you can plug in USB, things that can do your sound and input. So it effectively it's like you can containerize, literally, but also metaphorically, a phone. Its internet out and its inputs can all be controlled by the Raspberry Pi. So then, it's all cheaper and easier and all kinds of stuff, easier to assemble. But this didn't occur to me until someone talked to me and said, okay, yeah, your robots are crazy and they're too expensive and we don't have the room for them and whatever. So there was one person, they disappeared, and they ended up, when I talked with them, I tracked them down after a couple months. This is like recently, like in December. I was trying to figure out like why they disappear. How can I, putting my like businessy hat on, like, we can figure something out, right? Or what did they go with? I would like to know, like, why didn't, because I made a really complicated fancy prototype for them, all kinds of stuff, right? And then I had, I remembered, oh, wait a second, I gave this talk at Appium conference in Bangalore, and you didn't need a robot. It was just this virtual mouse and keyboard thing. So I kind of dusted off that idea, looked back at my talk and my code from that, called this person up in December and said, hey, I've got an idea. Potentially we can help you. I did this other thing. It would be way cheaper and whatever. It's like, well, that's a funny story. That's exactly what he did. So instead of buying 20 of my robots and doing all kinds of stuff, he has a whole row of Raspberry, or not, it's actually Pi Pico is the other one. So these are really in stock. So the Pi Pico is like $6. This also can act as a mouse keyboard. So it replaces this whole thing. And then the Raspberry Pi Zero. It doesn't replace the camera, so that's what the other thing is going on in here. You have the brand new, this is really a sales pitch for Raspberry Pi stuff, right? The autofocus camera is like just a couple months old. That's underneath here. It's a little custom 3D printed plate here. So it's the camera plus the Raspberry Pi. So I have the camera that I have for this feed can look down at the phone. And so now you're not cheating and pulling a video feed out. So it doesn't have to be, I guess it has to be an iPhone or an Android, right? But the camera is looking down, and you can do all of the automation stuff all on this. And so that's interesting. So that I'm hoping to kind of make that more public. I do have created a, let's see if I got this here, kind of a 3D mock-up of the design. Oh, that's weird. So if I can preview that. Oh, that's so weird. There you go. So that's like, I've got a 3D model mock-up of this, the digital twin, right? I design all these parts in like OpenSCAD, and then eventually there'll be some web version of this, right? So even though this is like a weird like next chapter, right? So even though I totally geeked out and finally got like a really cool robotic platform that I really, really liked and proud of, the next robot just will not look like a robot. It's the armless robot, right? And it's going to be easier to scale and assemble and whatever. So I'm hoping to get like kind of kits together and then kind of people kind of play around with this. But it's interesting. iPhone and Android, like you can now just plug in this virtual mouse and keyboard and you really don't need a robot. And granted, some of my best friends were telling me like, yeah, we all don't need robots, Jason. I don't know why you keep doing it. But now I'm starting to see like, okay, yeah, you can now just use a virtual robot, right? Anyway, so the Tapster Zero, the bill of materials, and will be all up on GitHub soon, just not at the end of my talk today. Anyway, so I think I've got like 4 minutes. I think I'm actually done, but I think we've got a little bit time for Q&A, so we'll just go for that.
Definitely. Let's take some questions. So let's see who has some questions for Jason. Okay.
Hey, thank you for the pretty entertaining presentation. And my question will be, what is the purpose of all of that?
Why?
Is it just all for the automation of the mobile testing, or is it just like?
So it's funny. So I call this the Uncle Charles test, the Uncle Charles question, because Uncle Charles, you see him at Thanksgiving. A variation of the Uncle Charles question is also, you make stuff and you give it away for free. Why? Or like, how does that work? Like, how do you pay the bills? Like, I don't know. It just kind of worked out. So what's happening for ever since I made the first robot, I originally made the very first one as an art project. Like, it was just getting my stress out, right? And then people come out of the woodwork and email me and say, I've got this weird use case. I need to use a robot that does X, Y, and Z. So some people, like the guy who used the Pi, they're doing provisioning. They're setting up tablets or something like that. So you take a tablet out and you need to add it to Wi-Fi, install apps or whatever. So it's been literally every day for the last 8 years or 10 years, it's been a discovery process of finding out. So like, I don't know the why, people tell me their why, and then we put something together. And I even ask them the question, like, why can't you use Selenium? Why can't you use Appium? Whatever. But then there's these situations where it's like, oh, but we're making a point of sale system and we have to swipe an actual credit card. So there's a version of this that can swipe an actual credit card. Or you can add the NFC, like actually bring it in and chip. Or it's the debit card, so you have to insert something and use the robot to do that. Or it's a medical device and you need to test the Bluetooth pairing between a mobile phone and the thing. Or it's a watch and it's pairing with that and you can't simulate the Bluetooth stuff. Or it's like all kinds of different things, right? Or it's that you're a security researcher and you need to put something in a Faraday cage and access it remotely. So it's all these kind of like super weird niche cases that I guess I got lucky and stumbled into when we were first doing like Selenium, that I stumbled into like the thing that everyone else needs, right? The 80% stuff. But if like the robot-y things are, it really is some super weird kind of corner case niche-y thing. And so it's one of those things, if you're wondering why you would need it, then you probably don't need it, right? That's really what it comes down to. So like, sorry, Uncle Charles, every year, just like, I don't really have a good answer, just tap dancing around it. But somehow it works.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, we'll just take one more. And then please don't leave, I have an announcement to make. Thank you.
Hi, yeah, it's a very good presentation and it was really entertaining. My question is, when you brought up the point of using the eyes and the finger, is there any plan to use multiple fingers, like for example, zoom in, zoom out, or changing the phone position,
Yes.
landscape to?
So we actually
portrait.
have a version of the robot at some point in the past. I didn't already had too many videos, I guess. That was, you could either make a multi-fingered robot arm. It was easier since I already had a one-fingered arm to just make a second one-fingered arm and put it next to each other. It goes back to the video game stuff. Collision detection for robot arms is exactly like all video game design is just all collision detection algorithms. So I had to do that. But going back to I didn't really know what to create until people told me what they needed. And every time I asked them, do you need multi-touch? And especially when you've got a touch screen in a car or a medical device or whatever, basically like anybody who doesn't have a map app, which is a lot of people. There's only a couple of people who do have map apps. But most applications are single touch. Or even if there is a multi-touch functionality, there is a backup to, especially like car interfaces, they're required to have single touch only, whatever. So I have dreams of having multi-touch stuff, but every time you add, this is true in robotics, every time you add an extra motor or an axis or whatever is extra complexity. So there's a reason why we don't have C3POs and R2D2s going around, because it's like, it's just too much. If you can get away with like building a toaster instead of a robot that can make toast for you, like you build the toaster, it's simpler. So if I can get away with just single touch, I'll do that because it's a faster delivery, blah, 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 blah. But it's also more fun, whatever. So yeah, there's multi-touch out there, but every time when we ask him, like, is this priority 1, critical, whatever, like, no, that's like, we could do that in phase 2, right? And everyone knows phase 2 means never, right? So whatever. Yeah. All right, so we have an announcement.
Thank you very much, Jason. First of all, give it up for Jason.
Thank you.